a non-negotiable list ruining your chances of marriage? This question comes in from Kimmy, and I want to thank you so much, Kimmy, for asking this because it's a question each of you really want to ask yourselves. Because the answer is a little bit twofold, and this is our summer shorty series, and I want to jump right in and give you a short and sweet answer that's going to help you figure out if you need to re-examine your non-negotiable list, create a non-negotiable list, or get rid of your non-negotiable list in order to help you improve your opportunities to step into and fulfill your God-given desire for a Christ-centered marriage. Hello, ladies, and welcome to the Forever Love podcast. I am your host and Christ-centered relationship coach, Lily Matangwiza, and today we are answering Kimmy's question: is having a non-negotiable list ruining my chances of marriage? And the answer is short and sweet, no. But you really need to evaluate your list because so often we start to go from a non-negotiable list that has some really core elements in it that are very important to just becoming a laundry list, wish list that we're kind of like submitting to God and hoping he'll honor our request, and then getting confused when God's sending people our way who don't match our order form. Like, we really sometimes have a tendency to think that we could just fill out our request for, submit it to the heavens through earnest prayers, and then eventually, if we are good enough, that man will walk into our lives and everything will be better. I hate to burst your bubble, but that's not going to happen. So let's talk about really important things on a non-negotiable list, like the things you definitely want to have on there, and then the things you might want to consider reevaluating. So when I talk to clients about this and their lists, because they all have them, so don't feel bad about having a list. Like, I want you to get to a point where you feel really, really good about your list and you are totally on board with it, and you are happy to share it with other people, and it feels good and it feels true. So we want to start with the free space. Like, you know how if you're playing bingo, you got that free space in the middle, and that's just a given? I think when it comes to your non-negotiable list, you want to have some free spaces. And one of them, if you want to have a Christ-centered marriage, is that both of you have to have a relationship with the Lord through Jesus. That's a given. That's a free space one. And it's a prerequisite to having a Christ-centered marriage, yeah? Now, in that same atmosphere, we also want to add in a few other kind of throwaway ones. They're really, really obvious, but it feels good to ourselves. It gives us a little bit of peace and assurance within our own hearts and minds that we're going to be okay. We're going to be safe in our relationships. And so we want to add a few more to our free space bucket. And those might include things like no murderers, no pedophiles, no rapists, no pimps, no people who are engaging in behaviors that are extremely contrary to having a relationship with Christ. Like, we can see by their actions, by the fruit of their lives, that there's no real connection to the source of love and creation, and they are in many ways acting actively against God and his love. Okay, so those just kind of go into our free space bubble, and you can feel free to add whatever you need to into that bubble. But then we have these other non-negotiables that really, if our relationship with this person is healthy and fulfilling and respectful and sincere and authentic, it makes a lot of these other things really irrelevant. So let me give you a few examples. So some things that I see women coming up with and putting on their non-negotiable list is how much money he makes. So you'll be like, okay, he has to make a certain amount of money. Otherwise, I just can't be in a relationship with somebody who's making X amount per year. Or he has to have a car, or he has to be a certain skin tone, he has to be a certain height or weight. He can't be this way physically, he should be this way physically. He has to know how to do certain things, or he has to have certain skills. And I want you to be really curious about why those things matter to you. And it's not that any of them are really wrong for wanting those things. Like, if that's who you're attracted to, that's one thing. But really bear in mind, like, where is this coming from? And one of the ways we can begin to explore where these things are coming from is asking ourselves, like, what do these things say about you? If you marry a man of a certain height, what does that say about you? Alternatively, if you marry a really short guy, what does that say about you? If you marry a man who makes a certain amount of money each year, what does that say about you? And if you marry a man who is struggling financially, what does that say about you? Another way to get at it is the underlying fears of what you don't want for yourself. Like, I don't want to date a loser. I don't want to have to take care of a man. So take that first part of the sentence, I don't want to, and then look at what the things are that you don't want to do. I don't want to date a loser. I don't want to have to take care of a man. I don't want to, you fill in the blank. Another way, so I'm giving you a few different options to play with to really explore, like, what's on that list? Why is it there? Is it helpful? Is it serving you? Is it a way of avoiding any kind of emotional pain or frustration? Are we using it to keep people at bay and avoid uncomfortable situations in life? Or does the list really work for you? Does it help keep you grounded and strong and faithful and full of love? So, another way to look at it is, what do I think people will think? So, if I date this guy, what am I afraid people will say? That's a really important one because so many of us find it very, very important that our partner mesh really well with our current circle of acquaintances, family, and friends. And I'm not saying that that isn't important, but I want you to know why it's important to you. Especially, we want to consider all the different aspects of it. Sometimes we have really, really important relationships that are happening in our life that just aren't negotiable. Like, kids, for example. If you've got kids, they're non-negotiable. Kids are coming along for this relationship, and it's important that there's like a mutual relationship of love and kindness and joy within all parties of the relationship. So to some extent, especially if those kids are younger, they have to have some kind of liking, appreciation for the person that you're going to invite into the rest of your life, right? And so having those things really laid out before you can be very, very helpful, because otherwise we start to just keep adding things on to our non-negotiable list. It's like, oh, I heard Sally say that she would only marry a man if he's like this. And that sounds really good. So we'll just add that on. And that sounds like a really good non negotiable. So we'll add that to my list. Like, I wouldn't want to miss out on any of the non negotiable possibilities. Like, oh, because what if I did marry a man like that? And that would be a disaster because Sally would never marry a man like that. So just being more mindful of where your ideas of what this should look like are coming from. One of the areas I see that is especially challenging for Christian women in particular is wanting the person you're interested in to have the same relationship with God that you have. So it's not enough that they have a relationship with Christ. You want them to be of the same denomination. You want them to believe the exact same creed and theology and dogma. You want them to preferably attend the exact same church. And that's where it's like, is that necessary? Is that what's really important? Obviously, as you progress the relationship and if it moves into marriage, you want to find ways that you can share your love of God together. And I do think it's very helpful for partners to attend the same church and uh, let their family life really evolve around their core values and the way they relate to God. But does it have to look the exact same? Does it mean that a Pentecostal and a Catholic can never find mutual ground and be in an equally yoked marriage? No, I don't believe it does. I believe there are many, many examples of amazing couples that overcome their doubts, because that's what it is underneath it all, right? Like, I doubt if you can understand and love God the way I understand and love God. And I think my way is better than your way. And therefore, you need to either surrender and give up your way and adopt my way. Otherwise, it probably isn't going to work out between us. But what if we create a little bit more space for, like, there's probably a lot of different ways to know and love God. And this guy seems to be on the right track. And I want to be curious about his relationship with God. And I want to tell him about my relationship with God. And so there's space for us to learn more about the other person, understand them better, develop a better understanding of ourselves, because that's what often comes out of these situations where we don't have identical values and views. We learn more about the other person and ourselves. And that is a beautiful, beautiful opportunity to show up with love and for love and to contribute love in a greater and deeper way. So please don't avoid those situations. Don't look for somebody who is a mirror reflection of you and your values. On the other hand, it is important to find somebody who reflects your values and whose life could be compatible with yours. So there's so many things. And again, this is a short and sweet episode, so I don't want to go too deep on any of it. But really understanding, like, where do you want a husband to come into your life? What things are super important for you to share specifically with your husband? And one thing that I think a lot of women struggle with is we want to share our entire lives with our husband all the time. And that's why we want him to have all the same hobbies and values and things so that he can do them with us and he can be like our built in buddy for all things. And then that's really frustrating because even though we have so much in common, he might not want to do everything with you. And sometimes we interpret that as like he's not interested in me, which may or may not be the case. Probably he's just not interested in canoeing. He's not interested in hiking. He's not interested in computer science or geeking out over home improvement projects the way you are. And that can be okay. Like it whatever your thing is, it's nice if you can have that in common, but it's also okay if it's just your thing forever. And you have other people in your life who support your interests, other friends, other teachers, other people who are in, and here's one of the things, like, the most important thing is, does he encourage you in your pursuits and your passions? Or is he like, oh, I don't want to do that, so we shouldn't do that? That's where we get into trouble. Sometimes we're like, oh, because if I don't, if he doesn't do what I want to do, then I'm probably going to have to do what he wants to do. And then I'm going to have to sacrifice all the things I love. So it's better if we just both love the same things. But it's also possible for him to do the things he loves doing and for you to do the things that you love doing, which are different, and for you to both spend a lot of quality time doing things that are important to both of you. And that might mean that you have a little more time separately and a little less time together, but if the time together is valuable and full of love and appreciation, and you're coming with fresh stories about the things you're doing on your own, and you're very interested in each other and each other's lives and your goals and your pursuits, then it can be a really beautiful and healthy thing. So these are just some thoughts that I wanted to offer to you and encourage you on, because you can make a variety of combinations work. You really can. And it does possibly require some extra effort for you and for him when there are big differences involved. But speaking as somebody who's got a lot of big differences between myself and my husband, I mean, we've got an age gap, we've got a cultural difference, we've got um, locations on earth difference. He's in Zimbabwe, I'm in Canada. Like, we've got a lot of differences, and yet it still works because the core values are the same. And I love talking about core values. I always encourage my students to figure out their two core values. You've got two core ones, and everything else kind of like is an expansion or an explanation almost of those two core values. And if you go to proverbs2426.com, you can take the relationship starter course, and it'll teach you and show you how to figure out what your two core values are. Just head over to proverbs2426.com, and up at the menu there's like a relationship course right there. It's a $7 course, and it helps you figure out what your core values are so that you can begin to explore your non-negotiable list through the lens of your core values. And then we can start to let go of some of those things that really aren't non-negotiable. Like, if everything else is going good and we're in a very healthy and satisfying relationship, then these things actually don't matter. And so they're not non-negotiable. They might be preferences. You can have as many preferences as you want, but don't overlook opportunities for really amazing relationships just because they don't meet all of your preferences. Like, really begin to distinguish between, like, that's a bonus, and this is like non-negotiable, like absolutely must have criteria. So really kind of reevaluating it. So go look at your list, create a list, evaluate your list, and figure out, what do you want to keep on there and what are you ready to let go of? What are you ready to just say, like, you know what, it really doesn't matter. I don't care about that as much as I used to. And it's okay if you used to really care about a certain thing. And it's okay to not care about it anymore, or care less, and care more about authentic, meaningful, Christ-centered relationship with a man who's going to love you and treat you with all the kindness, love, and devotion that you deserve. That is all, my friend, for today. If you would like more short and sweet material like this, I want to encourage you to join our 31-day challenge. It is the Dating Without the Apps challenge, and it starts on July 1st. Head over to proverbs2426.com/31-day challenge, all as one word, and sign up, because it is going to be an amazing opportunity to really detox from the digital distractions, which I think is super important right now as we head into the summer of 2022. We want to be fully available to our current reality and not be bombarded by the distractions of the digital world, because it's nonstop. It is constant headlines, it is constant advertising and swiping and scrolling, all of it. What if we just put it away for 31 days? Really show up for love, with love, and allow ourselves to experience ourselves and relationship, and looking for and honoring that God-given desire for love and marriage through a very detoxed, intentional form. I'm going to walk you through it every day. Tiny little audio lessons that you can listen to in less than 10 minutes that are going to help you really stay on track and stay focused on your God-given desire and detox from all the digital distractions. Head over to proverbs2426.com/31-day challenge. That is all for today. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next week with another Summer Shorty. God bless you. Bye for now.